When everything is on the line, you want him on your team. We are the Spy-Fi guys, and this is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Hello and welcome back to the Spy-Fi guys, where we cover spy fact, spy fiction, and everything in between. I'm Zach.
And I'm Christian.
And we are back early with a very special Dead Drop episode for you.
Yeah, a dead drop for Dead Reckoning. That's right, we're covering, this is our coverage of Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, or otherwise known as Mission Impossible 7. So, Zach and I got to see a early screening of it on Sunday?
On Sunday, and then I believe you saw it again.
Yes, I just came back from a screening in which I got to see it on IMAX, but Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie were literally in the theater over from me. It was a special screening. I just missed the cutoff for when they for the main theater, so I got put in a overflow theater, and I did not get to see them. But I've got photos of them that some kind people have sent to me, and they were literally just right there, and I was in the same building. But
that must have been painful.
Yeah, it was a little. I had some major just FOMO feelings, but that just means I'm getting ever so closer. Like, I couldn't make it to the Fallout premiere because of another reason. So I was far away from that one. Now I'm in the same building. Maybe by Dead Reckoning Part 2, that'll be when it happens.
So what would your reaction have been if you had been in the same room as Tom Cruise?
Oh my God. I would,
Would there have been tears?
Maybe a few tears, or just plain dumbfounded shock.
Would you have kept control of your bowel?
Yes.
That's good. You want to make a good impression.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is not about me. I mean, it is a little bit about me being almost being Tom Cruise, but this is really about the movie. Do you want to read the plot synopsis from IMDb?
Well, I would love to, but the last couple episodes I've been skipping the poetry synopsis.
Oh,
and you kind of gave me a hard time about it, and I like the poetry synopsis. So all right. I was moved by this movie.
Okay,
so.
I wasn't sure because I feel like dead drops we don't always have the time, but I'm glad that you found the time.
Well, I had a few days, so from this point on, listeners, here comes the spoilers. You have been warned.
Oh yes, that is a very, very big distinction since we're dropping this pretty quickly. So,
I mean, here on the Spy-Fi guys, we always spoil everything, but I thought it was worth reiterating. Mm-hmm. Anyway, here's the haiku. Entity is born. Sevastopol sinks itself. Goodbye to Ilsa.
Interesting. All right. I like it.
And here's the limerick. There once was a woman called Grace who got caught in a wild car chase. She's had a hard life, fought Gabe with a knife, but she wound up in a pretty good place.
Nice. I like it, yeah.
And here is the actual plot summary from IMDb. Ethan Hunt and his IMF team must track down a dangerous weapon before it falls into the wrong hands. Very direct as usual from IMDb.
Yeah. All right, so we start off at
the Arctic Circle, right?
The Arctic Circle, yeah. I was trying to think okay, so U.S. submarines are, USS or whatever, but I have no idea how Russian ships, what their designator in the beginning is, so I'm just getting the Sevastopol, which is a submarine. Some big Red October vibes here.
Yeah, Tom Clancy would have been very happy with the beginning.
They flat out steal the thing from Red October where, you transition from Russian to English on the one. Well, actually, this one is more of an overlay, but it's really the one word. I think in this case, the name of the ship is where they transition. But it's a stealth sub. They've been doing a bunch of missions, coming into contact with almost every world's navy without being detected. And as they're going about these duties, they spot a Virginia-class submarine, a U.S. submarine, attempts to get away, and see that it has filled its torpedo tubes and fires on it. So they, of course, retaliate and fire back. But they find that it's a ghost ship. It never existed.
Yeah, so they're a super advanced AI system, which looks like Cerebro.
It does, yeah.
First it messes with them, and then it kills them, which is great. So to be revealed, the bad guy kind of is an evil AI. Now, apparently, this is very common in science fiction, but it's not common in Mission Impossible, and I actually quite liked it.
Yeah, it's different, and it's also, I mean, coming into the world we live in now, AI, especially. I mean, even think about it. The AI. The reason that currently the writers are on strike is at large to deal with AI and protecting their rights. So this movie was written, I think, like 3 years ago, if not before. So the fact that Christopher McQuarrie was so prescient in realizing what would be threatening to us was interesting.
I don't know when the articles about how AI was going to kill everybody, like when that started.
I mean, we had Terminator back in the 80s, so it's been around, but just in terms of putting it into an espionage aspect, yeah.
Yeah, well, ChatGTP got big, or GPT, or however you say it, got big. And then a bunch of articles were written about how AI was going to kill us, and they never explained how exactly that was going to happen. I guess this movie is doing its part.
Yeah, well, I mean, like watch any Terminator movie. The AI becomes self-aware and decides to destroy the world.
Yep.
Anyway, so we get our mission briefing. There's a food delivery guy who is a new IMF member.
Yeah, this movie is 2 hours and 45 minutes long, and in some of these dialogue scenes, it really feels like they're taking advantage of that. Like, it takes Ethan Hunt like 15 minutes to get his lunch, or at least it felt that way. Though it turns out that he got his mission.
Yeah, well, yeah. This was interesting to me. This is the first time that there's a mention of the choice. And that is a recurring thing here in this.
Right.
It's not a new concept, though. It's built into the very essence of Mission Impossible.
Well, right, the mission that they choose to accept.
Yeah, exactly. But that seems to be the big, other than AI, that seems to be the big concept of this movie, which I thought was really interesting, of analyzing that idea of a mission should you choose to accept it.
Which, of course, he always does. So is there really a choice? Especially when the fate of the world is at stake. I know that's not really what the movie is about, but it makes you think.
And we'll get into more of what the choice is later. But I like how here we have Kittredge as the voice on the tape. And it's also, did you notice, it's all analog. It's not digital.
I did not notice that.
It's a tape. It's, photographs. It's all analog because they already know, Kittredge or at least already knows about the entity.
Right.
Ethan has no clue. But yeah, so he's spent to recover. There's these two keys that fit together. Now, these are keys that we saw on the Sevastopol to get into their mainframe.
Yeah, and this was confusing. I was like, why? Oh. I had issues with the plot of this movie. I mean, whatever. It's a Mission Impossible movie. But so I was like, why would the Russian keys to their super secret spy program defeat the entity?
There's a good reason, though.
I mean, they explain it later. It's just such a low-tech solution to such a high-tech villain.
Which I thought was great. I mean, how else you're not going to defeat an AI with another AI, because then you're going to have just another AI on your hands. You have to use a low tech solution.
Yeah, it's still a Mission Impossible movie. They still need to have a rabbit's foot. They still need to steal stuff. So it is what it is.
Yeah, but what we find out in the mission briefing is that one of those keys is in the possession of Ilsa.
Right, who is now wanted.
Yeah.
Dead or alive.
So we go to the desert outside of Yemen. With some strong Lawrence of Arabia vibes here.
I was thinking more Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2.
Well, we're talking about a cinematic aspect. You see the desert like that. You see horses. You see people in robes. And face coverings. You think Lawrence of Arabia.
You think John Wick Chapter 4.
That too, sure. I won't lie. I did kind of think about saying, didn't we just do this? But
right,
we see that Ilsa's hiding out. She's got a big sniper rifle and an eye patch.
Yeah, which was in all the trailers, so people thought that she actually was missing an eye.
Yeah, but I mean, I had a feeling that that's for the use of sniping, not because of losing an eye or something. But
right,
we also get a fake out death for her, like when the bounty hunters come after her.
You see like a dead body, and then Ethan kind of looks at it. Yeah. But then I thought it was pretty clear that it was fake. But this reminded me of
the Wrath of Khan. I knew you were going to say that.
A fake death for Spock. Well, but what I thought was, there's a part where Ilsa shoots this I guess, a bad guy who's completely covered up with sunglasses.
Oh yeah, the female bounty hunter.
Yeah, so I thought they had like switched costumes or something, and also was pretending to be her dead body.
Ah, no,
That's
it
not what
was
happened, though.
no, not quite. It was more. I think she may have gotten like the wind knocked out of her or something, and she was playing possum.
Yeah, that's revealed later.
Yeah.
Right.
So we next go to. I don't know if they actually reveal where this is, but it is a meeting of the community, aka all the heads of the various intelligence organizations, or at least the U.S. based intelligence organizations, and we have
Yeah.
all of the people here.
Even though Indira Varma was in the scene, I still didn't like it.
What?
Because they just explain about the entity again, and we just had that explanation.
Did we though?
I mean, how much
No.
did you need to know?
This is the first we get that of that explanation. When else would we have gotten it? We didn't get it on the Sevastopol. We didn't get it in the IMF briefing.
Well, we should have gotten it at the IMF briefing.
Except Kittredge doesn't want Ethan to know what that's for. He just wants him to recover those keys.
Yeah, but I'm talking as an audience member.
Okay.
The audience only needs to hear it once, please.
And this is the first time that they're going to hear it.
Okay, later in the movie they talk about the entity so much. The dialogue scenes in this movie I wasn't the biggest fan of.
I completely disagree with you because this has, like, Fallout was nonstop action. This actually had a plot and meaning to it. Not that I don't love Fallout, but it is mostly just action, and there's character beats, but it is so much action. This seems a more balanced level where you actually care about the characters, and I liked all of the members of the community. You had Mark Gatiss, you had what's his name, Princess Bride,
Carrie Elwes.
Carrie Elwes as the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who played Warlock from Top Gun, whose name escapes me now.
We also have Ethan in there in disguise, and I did not think it would be Ethan. I thought it was a bad guy using a mask, and he was going to kill everybody, and that really would have raised the stakes of the movie. But not so much.
No, it was. So we also have Kittredge, who is now. We last saw him. I don't even know, back in all the way in Mission Impossible 1. I don't remember what exactly his position was in the CIA, but now he's back as the director of the CIA. Mm-hmm. Also, did you notice whose photo was on the wall in the room?
No, and I'm going to assume that it's an IMF head from some previous movie.
No, it is the last head of the CIA, who's in a very official-looking photo in the Oval Office. I believe her name was Erica Sloan, played by... Oh, my goodness, now I can't remember her name. The woman who played Black Panther's mother.
Angela Bassett?
Yes, Angela Bassett.
Okay.
So this means Angela Bassett is now the president.
I guess so.
I think that's cool to me, a black woman president in at least that universe.
I mean, but why is she the president? Did they say the former CIA director is the president?
No, but anytime in a government building, if you have a framed photo of someone in the Oval Office, they're the president.
Well, you're definitely watching this movie at a different level than I am.
Obviously.
I was just bracing myself for the intruder who turned out to be Ethan to kill everybody.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what's going on with the entity.
Yeah. So we find out the entity, it's a rogue AI, basically.
It's a rogue AI that just wants to mess with people. Like, he doesn't want to blow up the world, at least not right away.
So what they say is that they accessed a bunch of different intelligence organizations' databases and then did nothing but left very visible digital footprints as a warning, basically. I could do whatever I want.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah. And also, there's some veiled references to fake news in there. Well, not so veiled, but yeah.
Yeah, that's another very current issue.
Yeah.
And hopefully it won't cause the movie to age. No promises.
Yeah. Like you said, Ethan, gasses everyone besides Kittredge. They have a conversation where, it's revealed that, Ilsa was playing possum and that she's actually still alive, but Ethan tells her, you're dead now, stay dead.
Right. Yeah, that's going to work out great.
Mm-hmm. As Ethan, escapes by putting on a Kittredge mask, we cut to our titles.
Okay. I don't really have anything to say about the titles.
I think the music here is great, done by Lauren Balfe, who did the last two, I believe, Mission Impossible, as well as contributed Top Gun Maverick. And I like the theming of it is more like sort of digital erasure. Like you'd have characters there and they sort of, get wiped out in a digital manner, which is cool.
Yep. And very
On
Apropos
point.
of the movie,
Yeah.
yeah.
The community sends people after Ethan and company as they all head to Abu Dhabi. So we've got the lead people who are chasing them are Jasper Briggs, played by Shea Wiggum, and Degas, who's played by Greg Tarzan Davis.
Mhm.
Uh, Greg Tarzan Davis played one of the other pilots in Top Gun Maverick, so he may look a little familiar to you. Shea Wiggum's been in a ton of things, including the Fast and Furious franchise.
Yeah, they look familiar. They reminded me of I get not Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but like or not
They're
like the droids from Star Wars. Like they're always following our heroes around and tagging along. I always miss them.
they're your Inspector Javert type, the type who's
Sure.
chasing after the main hero.
Yeah.
But did the name? Well, so here's the thing: his name is never said anywhere. It's just in the credits. But then the name Briggs bring any memories for you?
I mean, yeah, it sounded familiar.
So Dan Briggs was basically Mission Impossible's version of Captain Pike, and that he was in the first season and then never appeared again as like the head of the
Hmm.
IMF
Well, yeah, was he in the episodes that we watched?
in Operation
In the,
Rogosh.
in the rerun summer? Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
And there's a point where Briggs or Degas asks Briggs, "Have you met him?" Is that no, not personally. Is it? But it is personal for you. So I feel like they're hinting that he's related to Dan Briggs in some way,
Mhm.
which would be fun for all those fans like me of the of the original TV show, and of course our buddies over at Mission Impossible who are covering the TV show,
Not to be confused with Minute Impossible.
who cover the franchise 1 minute at a time.
Right. This movie had a lot of factions, which I liked.
Yeah, together. So they're all sort of at odds, and so you have a lot of people running into each other with different agendas. So we have Benji and Luther there to help Ethan, who we find out that all right, there's a sale that's going on of one of the keys. They still Ethan has the key that was in the possession of Elsa,
Mm.
and so their plan is to sell the key to the buyer and track that key, the two keys together, to find someone who actually knows what the keys lead to.
And I just gotta say, keeping track of where all of the halves of the key were really made my head hurt. I do not go to Mission Impossible movies to try to keep track of stuff like that. I come
Really?
to watch Tom Cruise jump off of things.
See, as a fan of that sort of the movie from the very first one, where there was not stunts, it was all about intrigue and sleight of hand, that sort of stuff. I love this stuff.
But I got into the series with Ghost Protocol, which we will be talking about next week. Spoiler alert for that. That was the point where the series became more like an action series than a spy series.
Well, that is one of the things that I've seen come around about this movie. Is people say, "Wow, they actually made it back into a spy movie."
Yeah, in some ways.
What I like here is that Luther is fooling, the agents of the community by basically doing real-time deep fakes.
So this was interesting. I liked it, and I also brought my family was in town, my parents and siblings, so they came along with me. They also really quite liked them going up to somebody and thinking that it's Ethan, and then trying to pull his face off. And
I love that, like Shea Wiggum or Jasper Briggs, every time, he'd see someone and would be pulling on their face.
Right.
That was great.
So it was great, but I was hoping it was the entity that was messing with them. Because I was hoping the entity would be more of a prescient threat, or not prescient, but present threat throughout the movie. Because they use technology so much, I wanted them to be like constantly being messed with.
And we get to that point later on, but right here, this is Luther's doing.
Yeah. So I was a little bit disappointed that was Luther's doing, but it's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also just sort of hinting towards, if Luther, a mere mortal, can do this, maybe what can the entity do?
Right.
And I also did like that we got a number of different callbacks to the first movie, especially with Luther's two nicknames, Phineas Freak and the Net Ranger, both from the first movie. Also, Ethan's designator back in the mission briefing scene is from the first movie, Bravo Echo 11.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, I do not remember the first
Of
three
course
movies
you
that
don't,
well.
but there are other fans of the franchise like me who
Mhm.
remember all these ridiculous details because they've seen these movies hundreds of times. And so, yeah, for me, when I was in the theater, I clapped and laughed when I heard the Net Ranger and Phineas Freak.
Yeah, if this were a Star Wars movie, I would be able to do that. But it's Mission Impossible.
We see Ethan trailing the buyer, and he's got some, fancy AR sunglasses that can track the key, or at least the material the keys are made up of.
Mhm.
Someone picks the buyer's pocket, who turns out to be Hayley Atwell, who we learn is playing a character named Grace.
Do you remember seeing Hayley Atwell at AwesomeCon, and
I
she
do
talked
remember.
about working with Mr. Running Man?
Mm-hmm.
That was 2 AwesomeCons ago. That
Yeah,
was not the most recent AwesomeCon. It was a whole year before that. So
yep,
that's how
yep.
long we've been waiting for this movie.
I mean, this movie was supposed to come out in 2021 initially.
So there you go.
Yeah, and she got cast in like 2019, so she's been on this movie for a long time.
And she's in it a lot.
She is,
Pretty
I think,
fastly,
maybe
yeah.
second build on this movie, and
Mm.
I really enjoy her here. So we get the return of Ethan's close-up magic, which we haven't seen since the first movie.
That I did remember from the
Uh-huh.
first movie. Yes.
I may have been inspired to start learning some close-up magic.
Never
I
too late to get back into it.
I used to be able to pull cards, but that was also very sloppy at it. So I think I need to practice it more now.
Yeah, this movie has a lot of close-up
I
magic.
love that. It's just because, well, to promote talk about yet another podcast like The Fuse, now the official Mission Impossible podcast. For the hosts have been talking about for a long time, wanting the return of Ethan's close-up magic, and they've got it now.
They got a tiny little MacGuffin that everyone's fighting over. It's perfect.
Yeah, and he's just, uses it. I love when he picks Grace's pockets and says, this key, and pulls out one, and then this key, and like hits them together, and they both disappear. It's great.
Mhm.
He recruits Grace to help him out. She can keep the money. She just has to put both keys back into the pocket of the buyer, and then Ethan continues his plan and chase them. There's a slight wrinkle, but because the buyer is killed by Paris, played by Palm Clementov.
So this is quite the plan that Ethan has, I must say. The most dangerous thing in the world, and you're just going to bring them together and then hope you don't lose the buyer, which is exactly what happens.
Well, he doesn't lose the buyer. The buyer's killed.
Well, yeah, I mean, the buyer could have been killed. He could have been kidnapped. He could have been disappeared. Like, any number of things
the
could
plan
have
was to
happened
get
to
him
him.
on the same plane as the buyer so that he could keep him in eyesight.
Yeah, it's risky.
Yeah, but that's the name of Ethan Hunt's game. Have we not learned this by now?
I suppose that's true. Also, something I wanted to mention is that the money is on a flash drive because it's cryptocurrency. It's $4 million in cryptocurrency, which now is probably worth what? $100? We'll see how that ages with the movie, too.
Yeah. Once they realize the buyer's dead, they have to switch to a new plan and also have to escape all of the community agents who are chasing them now that they've caught on to Luther's tricks and now are in just two-man teams.
Yeah, they're a zone defense.
Also, while all this is happening, Benji discovers a suspicious bag which has what looks to be a nuclear bomb in it, and it's also got a codex on it that he's trying to solve, and he has to solve it answering riddles. But it's also a
timer.
Psychological test that the more questions you answer, the more it gets to know you.
Okay, so what was the point of this?
This is the entity data mining Benji.
To what end, though?
To learn what his needs are, what his wants are, basically.
But it never does anything with it in the rest of the movie. Maybe it will next movie.
Well, no, it learns that the most important thing to Benji is his friends, and that's the way to get to neutralize them.
I don't think you need a psychological test to learn that, but okay.
And it's also just a distraction.
I mean, yeah, it's fun for the audience too.
No, I mean, but if both Luther and Benji were on, they would be able to help out Ethan so much more as opposed to one being separated.
Yeah, I like the part where they call Ethan and ask him to help with the riddles. It reminds me of this one episode of Doctor Who where they're calling the doctor to ask him trivia questions.
No, they call Martha's mom.
Yeah, because the doctor isn't sure, so they need her to Google it.
Yeah. As they're running and they realize, and Ethan, finally finds out about the nuclear bomb, which they find out is then empty. Grace
Mhm.
manages to escape, and as she is escaping, Ethan gets sight of a mystery man who's played by Isai Morales, aka Titan's Deathstroke.
Yep, that's him. And I guess he's from the first one. I had no memory of any of the flashbacks from the first
Those
one.
flashbacks are not from the first movie. Those are
Are they?
brand new flashbacks.
Well, that explains why I don't remember them then.
Yeah.
I definitely assumed that. Oh, also one thing I wanted to mention about the bomb.
Yeah.
Apparently, all you need to do is put a little sticker with the trifoil on it, and everyone will just assume that it's nuclear and start like
I
losing their shit.
mean, if you saw that and it was in that sort of canister, would you not?
It's a movie. Yeah, it's fine. We got to move things along. But so that really is not from a previous movie.
No, that's brand new information. Actually, we kind of skipped over that in the Kittredge's mission briefing. Well, we talked about the choice, and basically, Ethan apparently was coerced into joining the IMF. He had a choice of either prison or join the IMF.
Mm,
Because of some situation that happened 30 years ago
that isn't explained.
involving
Mm.
Gabriel and a woman being shot. That's all we see of it. That we don't really find out much more than that.
Yeah. So, Christian, as you know, I do like ambiguity, but in a
Okay.
situation like this, I would have liked a little bit more information.
Well, this is only part one of a two-part movie, so I assume we'll find out more.
It's a dangerous assumption to make.
Hmm.
But we'll see.
So once Ethan sees the man we will come to know as Gabriel, he calls it abort because he knows that Gabriel showing up is only bad news. So they all go to their different planes. Ethan runs on the rooftop of the Abu Dhabi airport as Briggs and Degas are like wondering where he is, and they don't even see him running away.
Yeah, that was a good visual joke because it's over. You see him in the background running by.
Yeah.
Do you think this movie was aware of the Tom Cruise running meme and tried
of
to break
course.
its own record? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay, Tom Cruise is aware of this because his Twitter profile literally says running in movies since 1981.
There you go. Well, did it break the record? Do you know?
In terms of like the longest running shot of him,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to look those up because which means I'd have to see it again. I know the record was previously in Mission Impossible 3, which was broken by Fallout. I don't know if it was broken in this one. It may have been not in this scene, but in a later scene, it may have been. But I have no idea if they actually did.
Yeah, he did a lot of running, so
he did.
I would assume
he's Mr. as Hayley Atwell called him, Mr. Running Man.
Mr. Running Man.
So we go to Rome, which is where Grace ended up. She's arrested by local police who found all her passports. They got a tip. But amongst all her possessions, we don't see the key.
I watched this movie with my sister Alana, who people may remember from Spy Kids. She had the observation of they didn't search everywhere. That's not me saying it. It's her saying it.
Okay.
Okay, just saying. If it were me, I would have had them scan her with a wand to be like, we're not detecting any metal.
But she doesn't have it, is the thing.
Right. As it turns out.
Yeah.
All more to say about that, too.
Yeah. As she's being interrogated, they get interrupted because her lawyer is here. Her lawyer, who turns out to be Ethan in a very smart-looking, vest and a pair of glasses. I like that vest.
Yeah, so this was kind of neat, too, because they know where she's going and are able to get one step ahead of her. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Like, she gives Ethan a comeuppance a lot in this movie, and he gives it back to her, too.
Yeah. She also reveals that Briggs and Degas are also in Rome and have been looking for her.
So what did this remind you of?
I don't know. What did it remind me of?
A hapless person in Rome being pursued by many factions.
Oh no, do not bring up Hudson Hawk.
Just saying. Hey, you said it. I didn't. I'm just saying I thought of something.
I did not actually. No, I did not, nor did I think about the Vatican organization.
I didn't think about that either. So is this the part where it's revealed that she placed the key on a guy?
Yeah. Okay. So we see her go into her, like, when she gets into her airplane, from Abu Dhabi to Rome, we see her sit next to a man. And it's revealed that she, flirted with the guy and like exchanged phone numbers to they can meet up later. And she is very good with these lifts and pulls. Yeah.
You actually see her do it.
But it was very smooth. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some funny dialogue here. I thought it was funny, at least a very strange edit, where Ethan is saying, "You found a mark. Probably a man, middle-aged. He's been waiting his whole life for a woman like you to notice him. Highly intelligent, probably an orphan, been in and out of foster homes."
Yeah,
And
I did. There should have been a little bit of a break in between
Yeah.
those two. I do agree with you that the first time I was a little thrown off.
I was like, how would she know he's an orphan?
No, yeah, there should have been a little bit more of a pause between those two. One describing
Right.
the man, her mark, the other describing Grace.
Yeah, I mean, I figured it out eventually, but
Yeah.
it was funny at first. Because, like, what you wouldn't want someone highly intelligent,
No,
right? Yeah. Anyway, do they ever explain how she got it back from the guy?
we don't see it, but we presume that once she escapes, and we'll get to how she escapes, that she met up with the guy, still had her phone, or still knew where to meet him up with him, and then got it from him. Then simple as that.
This is why my head hurt trying to keep track of where all the cues were.
Anyway.
Lana had a theory that he was invited to the party later,
No,
the naked party, but I guess that was wrong.
No. While she's being interrogated, also she steals a paperclip, which I enjoy spotting when they do such a thing and knowing exactly what they're going to do with it. And I mean, that is, sometimes they come up with these ridiculous things about how to pick a lock. Handcuff locks, actually pretty easy to pick if you've got a paperclip, just you bend it. They actually showed it correctly, and you just have a slight bend in it at the tip.
Nice.
And I can neither confirm nor deny that I've had to escape from handcuffs like that.
Oh my goodness. I don't want to hear about what you guys do in the bedroom.
Okay, not in that way. I was stupid and put them on myself, and then the key broke. Because I was just like, I should learn how to... All right, I guess let's edit this part
You basically
out of the podcast.
told the story. What? Come on, this is good stuff.
Oh, well, it was basically, I wanted to learn how to pick handcuffs locks.
Uh-huh.
And I put on handcuffs, and then the key broke.
Whatever, we've all done dumb stuff. Don't worry about it.
So,
at least you didn't starve to death.
Actually figure out how to, because I had a date later on. I was like, I'm not showing up to a date in handcuffs.
You didn't want to ask for help?
No.
Just like a man.
Well, ask who? Who
would I ask?
Who has a spare handcuff key?
Good point.
Anyways, this is not about me being handcuffed. This is about...
Lots of people get handcuffed.
Yes. So I also like how Grace, when she's with Ethan, escapes by faking that he groped her, and like a bunch of... Actually, I like that a bunch of men are all like, take her side and believe her immediately, and they're like, try to keep Ethan away from her.
So, question: did you like Grace?
Oh yes.
See, I did too. And the thing is, she's not a good person. She's a thief and a criminal.
And
Hayley Atwell's just so darn charming. You can't help but like her.
Saying you've never had a movie where there was a thief who you just wanted them to win? Any of the Ocean's movies?
Hudson Hawk.
Is he a thief? Yeah, he is a thief. That's right. I forgot
He's a cat burglar.
Yeah. Oh, what's that? The Thomas Crown Affair, Italian Job. These are all. There are so many movies about con artists and thieves. This is where you draw the line?
No, it's not that. It's more like I started liking her immediately.
Because she's Hayley Atwell and she's so charismatic.
I think that's the reason. Yeah, it was impressive.
But I like that because of her. But then that gets you an in. But after that, she actually has to show something, and she did. Like, I love just how she and I've seen this described in interviews, that she's someone who gets roped into a Mission Impossible movie that does not want to be in the Mission Impossible movie. She wants to get out. So she's a different vibe. Yeah. Yeah. So she was a new, fresh thing. Yeah. But yeah, so she steals a police car. Ethan steals a motorcycle. There's lots of big chases. They get handcuffed to each other. Also, Paris Clementif starts chasing them in a big, SWAT van or SWAT tank.
What was her character's name again?
Paris.
Like Berlin or something? Oh, Paris. Yeah. So Paris reminded me of Carrie Fisher's character from the Blues Brothers.
I've actually never seen the Blues Brothers.
Oh my god!
I know.
First of all, it's a great movie, but
It's a gap
but,
in my cinematic knowledge.
but Carrie Fisher will show up, try to murder them, usually with some kind of elaborate scheme, and then fail, and then disappear again. So that's what
sounds about right.
Reminded me of, yeah. So yeah, this is the big car chase, right?
And well, it's a car chase and a motorcycle chase that becomes another car chase, that becomes another car chase. I like when they switch over to the Fiat. That thing is hilarious. Did you like the setup for this, where Ethan has to find a safe car, not a safe house, a safe car, and he pulls up and you see all like a Lamborghini, Maserati, and then out comes this little yellow Fiat.
Yeah, I'd like the audience that we were in really liked it too. They got a lot of big laughs.
Because it was not just a regular Fiat; it was like a souped-up, like ridiculously fast Fiat.
Of course, they had done this joke already in one of the Expendables movies,
which I've never seen any of them, so it played like a first time to me.
I saw the trailer where Arnold Schwarzenegger says, "My shoe is bigger than this car."
Oh God!
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was good. The audience also liked the part where they knock over a bunch of motor scooters,
yeah,
or mopeds. Yeah, I mean, it's Mission Impossible. A car chase is expected, and it delivered.
It delivered, and also we get a scene on the Spanish Steps in Rome, and them driving around and tumbling down the Spanish Steps in the Fiat. It's great. They finally escape all of the cars by driving backwards into a tunnel, which turns out to be access to the train. Grace has uncuffed herself by using the paperclip, tosses the paperclip to Ethan. She escapes, but he is about to get hit by the train before he can escape.
So this is another Grace lucks out again, because she doesn't leave him to die. There's no train coming when she leaves.
Yeah.
So he both gets the danger, and she also doesn't have the guilt.
Yeah.
Of like,
but she also does give him. She could have not given him the paperclip.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah. And so Ethan narrowly escapes by just getting the steering wheel out of the car, and you see him walking up the stairs with the steering wheel handcuffed to him. When he is rescued by Benji, Luther, and Ilsa in a van.
Yeah, Elsa's back.
Yeah.
I guess so was everybody else.
Yeah. Which, I mean, they had all scattered to the four winds, and somehow they were able to track Ethan and come back and rescue him, thankfully. So we go to Venice in the safe house. They get intel on the gala, which is where Grace was supposed to hand off her key, which she still has. Or yes,
right. See what I mean?
Yeah. I had to think. Well, because also, I mean, I'm running through this movie, but also I'm like trying to remember where we are in the movie. And we find out that this gala being held in Venice is put on by the White Widow, a.k.a. Alana Mitsopoulos, who is the daughter of Max from the first movie, who we saw back in Fallout.
So was she in the earlier movie?
No.
I had no memory of her.
You don't remember her from Fallout?
No.
She's the arms broker who had the nuclear bombs that they were chasing after.
Okay. If you say so, I have no memory of that.
Wow. She's a decent part of that movie.
Yeah, I'm sure, but I remember the action scenes from the Mission Impossible.
All right. Well, I mean, find out more information on Gabriel. Yeah.
Let's talk about Gabriel for a second.
All right. Yeah.
They needed to do a bit more with him. I didn't understand. Especially now knowing that he's not in a previous movie. I was like, what's the deal with this guy? How did he start working for the entity? Like,
does it really matter?
What? Well, yeah, kind of.
Would you remember that next movie, though? Because you just literally said you only remember the action scenes.
Listen, me not having a good memory has nothing to do with whether or not I was confused watching this movie.
I mean, yes.
So, I just want to know, like, I think they explained what he got out of his alliance.
Yeah.
From the entity, do you remember? It's like he basically wants to burn everything down.
We know that he's involved in some big, event from Ethan's past, which basically made Ethan who he is now. And we know that, he is a psycho, and, it's not just the murder and the killing he enjoys, but the suffering that it brings.
Okay, so Christian, I'm going to need to correct you slightly. Yeah. We don't know that, we are told that.
Okay, we are told that, sure.
It's a lot of tell and not showing with Gabriel.
Mm.
That being said, the concept is great. The concept of the entity is great, and of Gabriel. So no, you haven't played Mass Effect, right? I would encourage you to do so when you somehow find the time, because in the first Mass Effect movie, or first Mass Effect game, excuse me, they do this where there's the main bad guy is an avatar of like some faceless techno evil, and he's like, yeah, I believe in them and their cause, and it's just really kind of neat. It's like a human face on a sci-fi concept, so I like that. I guess you could watch it on YouTube too, but it's not the same.
Okay.
I wanted a scene where Gabriel meets the entity for the first time and they become friends. Is that so much to ask?
To make it not sound completely laughable, yes.
All right, or something like that. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not a screenwriter on strike.
Good, because you wouldn't be able to write it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess we also find out that basically how Ilsa got involved in all of this. She has a few friends back in MI6 who are concerned if MI6 or even just the British government in general gets control of the entity. So they leaked it to her so she could, steal half of the key.
So yeah, this occurs to me. So they say every nation would kill for it.
Mm-hmm.
And someone even says later, I think every nuclear power wants to kill me and a few smaller ones or something like that. But we don't see that. We only see Briggs and what's his name. I mean, there's already a lot of factions.
Yeah, do you really need to see the Brits and the French and
it would be pretty crazy though.
The Russians all chasing after him too?
I'm going to make another comparison to the Blues Brothers. Actually, I won't. Never mind.
Okay. So we also find out that this is, Ethan and Ilsa's first time in Venice. They get a little snugly, on the railing after the, briefing.
Yeah, what was up with that? All the shippers go nuts.
Pretty much. And it's party time. So they take a bunch of gondolas down to the party. I like to really show off Venice. And
yeah, this is the most James Bond-like part of the movie.
Yeah. So we see Grace meets Gabriel and she's waiting for the buyer. It's not Gabriel though. The buyer is the White Widow, and then everyone sort of converges on the party. And we get everyone's pleading their case to Alana Mitsopoulos, the White Widow, of why they should be the one to get the key.
Then does she even have the key?
Well, she had. At that point, no. Grace still has the key, and she slips it into her Alana Mitsopoulos's brother. What is his name? It's like something with 4 letters, but not quite. Not Zemo. It's like something like Zemo that I cannot place it. Hold on.
And why does Grace do that?
Basically just so that when they search her, she doesn't have it.
Okay.
She said she didn't bring it. Oh, Zola. It's Zola. I knew it was a different Captain America villain. Yeah. Not Zemo, Zola. There it is. We find out that Gabriel is not there to try to purchase it, but the entity has told him that it will be delivered to him tomorrow on the train on the Orient Express. So somehow the entity already knows about these plans because they're a digital ghost.
Right.
But in order this to happen, someone's going to die. Important to Ethan. It'll be either Grace or Ilsa. It
occurred to me, like, if Grace looked like Paul Giamatti, would this be a difficult question?
I mean,
you met her 2 hours ago. She's not innocent in the sense that she's not like some random person off the street, and she's already caused some problems. Just saying.
Well, that's the thing. Well, and it's made a big deal about in Fallout that Ethan doesn't want anyone to die.
I mean, yeah, he's still a good guy in a Hollywood movie. Like, he's not just going to leave anyone to die if he can help it. But
I mean, if in, I don't know what scenario, if it's basically the exact same character, played the same, but played by Paul Giamatti, I think, yes, Ethan would still be in this dilemma.
Well, yeah, there's some issues with Ilsa in this movie, but we'll get to that.
Okay, so we end up with a chase where, Grace takes her key and runs off with it, and Ilsa runs away so that she doesn't have to be there to have Ethan make that choice. And Gabriel runs away and Ethan is trying to chase after him, and he has Benji, try to direct him to where he's going, but the entity deep fakes Benji's voice and
This was
guides
great.
him right into an alley.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did it take so long in this movie for the entity finally to start taking an active role in events?
This is where we really get the first interaction of any kind with the entity. Actually, that was a cool thing about the party, is like the entity is there in essence, like on the big screens.
Yeah. And when it starts talking to him, ooh, it's so creepy.
Mhm.
It was great. I just wish we had more of it.
Yeah, so Ethan is stuck in this alley as Gabriel is going after Grace to get that key. Grace has grabbed, these two knives, and they're having a big fight, which I like. It was a pretty good fight. I like the fight between Grace and Gabriel. You can tell that Grace is less experienced with the knives than Gabriel.
She was clearly outmatched.
Mhm.
Clearly.
And Ethan, that in that alley fight where it's Ethan, Paris, and just another goon, it is brutal because it is a tiny space that you can only wind up so much, or it's hard to get kicks in really. So a lot of it is just bashing people's heads into the walls, and then Paris has a pipe that she's using to hit Ethan with, and it's an impressive fight. And Ethan manages to overcome both of them and has an opportunity to kill Paris with the pipe, but spares her life
because he's a good guy.
Yeah. I mean,
but he does do the action hero thing where he smashes
it
right
next
above
to her
her
head.
to show that he could have done it,
Mhm,
but he didn't.
But yeah, so Grace also gets defeated by Gabriel, and she's about to be killed by him when Ilsa shows up with the cane sword, which Paris had earlier.
This was in the trailers.
Yeah. So we get a knife versus sword. This is also I quite like this fight. Ilsa had some pretty good fencing poses, and it all looked really well. She also integrated her signature climb up on the guy's neck and try to snap their neck or with her legs kind of thing, and it was thrown off. So it was very well done.
It reminded me of Captain Malcolm Reynolds versus the Operative in Serenity.
Yeah. But in the end, Ilsa gets stabbed
to death and dies later. But let's just skip to that.
Do you think she's dead?
Yes. I put it this way, I hope so. Because I like it when main characters die. There needs to be more consequences for their adventures.
All right.
Everything's too light and breezy and fun. Now, unfortunately, how was your emotions around Ilsa's death? I assume the movie pulled on your heartstrings.
So I got spoiled on this.
Okay.
So I knew it was coming.
Because
some idiot on Reddit put it right in the title of their topic. So I couldn't, I scrolled and I just saw it. And then after that, I muted the Mission Impossible channel or subreddit because I just didn't want to see anything else before I actually saw the movie. So I knew it was coming out, and I didn't get the full shock of it. I was sad about it, but as I watched the movie, and I'll get maybe at the very end, I'll sort of say why I don't think she's actually dead.
Okay. Well, so I'll just tell you, and this is probably not a surprise to hear this, because I guess I'd be kind of a curmudgeon. I'm the curmudgeon of the podcast.
You don't say.
Yeah, I'm just not that emotionally attached to Ilsa.
Well, that's because you don't remember anything besides the actions of scenes of Fallout.
That's right.
Or Rogue Nation, for that matter, where she is obviously second build, equal to Ethan and have all this chemistry together.
Okay, you're right. I have very little memory of Rogue Nation. Just in general. I remember Ghost Protocol and Fallout. Rogue Nation is kind of in between.
If you forgot that the White Widow is in Fallout, I don't trust any of your memory of these movies.
That's fine. I'm not asking you to trust my memory. But this is a little bit of a criticism of the movie. They had time for us to reestablish an emotional connection with Elsa, and they just didn't. She could have been in the movie a lot more before she died. And they just chose not to do it.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily chose not to. Have you seen Rebecca Ferguson's IMDb? She's in everything now. It may have just been an availability issue.
Well, sure, I suppose, but I was reminded. Have you ever heard the expression "every issue is someone's first issue"?
Hmm.
So every Mission Impossible movie is someone's first Mission Impossible.
Right.
So I was thinking about the people that I saw him with who had not. I don't. I think they've seen some of them, but
Okay.
they were basically going in kind of cold, and
And
they
what were
had
their
no emotional
reactions?
connect. They were didn't really feel much of anything.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So your whole family's unfeeling robots. Got it. Got it.
Well, so I mean, like, what does Ilsa do? She has an action scene. There's one part where she snuggles with Ethan, and then she dies.
So the action, it's not just the action scene; it's all the things being talked about her, both in the mission briefing and also
Uh-huh.
in the conversations with Kittredge. That's supposed to clue you in on and the
Mhm.
whatever relationship lies between Ethan and Ilsa.
I know. I guess the audience can decide whether it worked for them or not.
Hmm. Well, having met both of your siblings and knowing their taste in things, I'm not surprised.
Hey, now. But I mean, I don't know. I guess we approach movies differently than some people.
You very much do.
Entertain me, movie. That's how I feel.
Yeah, after the death question mark of Ilsa, we go back to the safe house where Grace is in a trauma blanket.
With the coffee,
Yeah, or presumably tea.
seen on many episodes of SVU and so on.
Yeah, yeah. And this is where Grace is given basically the choice.
Hmm.
It's revealed that Benji, Ethan, Luther have all been in a similar situation where there are a lot of options, and the choice is either prison, death, or join the IMF.
Yeah, apparently the IMF is like the military
Right. So
in the 60s.
this is very interesting to me that because you go all the way back to the curry, the Uber Eats guy in the very beginning.
Mm,
Ethan says to him, "You made the right choice." So he's
mm.
there because he was in some sort of situation. So I'm like thinking about all the different people who have been in the IMF, at least in the movies.
Mm. Yeah, this movie does. I mean, the ones recently they haven't because the first few they had this rotating lineup of guest stars.
Yes, but also there was an actual, like, especially in MI3, there's an entire organization. They have a headquarters. They've got
Right.
all these analysts and everything. Are all of them, people who had to make the choice?
Good question. You could ask Christopher McQuarrie, I guess.
Or is this you know, is this as they're rebuilding after
Mm.
Ghost Protocol
I
when
mean, yeah, I think it also could be for the field agents, the people who really go the extra
except
level.
Benji started off as an analyst, or not even an analyst, he's in tech services. So did
Mm.
he have to make
Yeah,
the
good
choice?
point.
Yeah, and he says, and they literally say every one of them, including Benji. So I'm like, I want to know because there have been also like on-screen biographies of Ethan, two of them, one in Mission Impossible 1 and one in I think Fallout, where you see files of him and they're on screen, so they're canon, that
Mm.
never mention like him being in the situation 30 years ago where he had to. It's usually he was recruited into the IMF either by Dan Briggs or Jim Phelps.
So it's kind of like a retcon.
It's definitely a retcon, but it can be easily explained as, oh well, we wiped it from the official record kind of thing.
I don't know. I just feel if I was dangling 50 stories above the ground, I would not want the guy at the other end of the line to be someone who had to be there or else he would go
Well,
to jail.
here's the thing too, though. They
Uh,
also specifically say they're all there by choice. They're all there because they want to be there.
but if the choice is death, prison, or the IMF, is it really a choice?
I mean, I assume at some point. Oh, here it gets into the point of Ethan retired. You can
Mm.
retire from that choice.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you put in your 5 years or 10 years or whatever with good
So at this
behavior.
point, he's way past that anyway. So I don't know. It's just an interesting concept that I'm very curious to see where they go with it in the second part of this, and if they
If,
explain more. And I'm
yeah,
sure I believe in Christopher McQuarrie, and I believe that he will.
I believe in Harvey Dent.
So they get Grace to agree to help them. So they come up with a plan. So on the Orient Express, she's gonna double the White Widow.
Mm.
Gonna find out who the buyer is, get both keys, hand him off to Ethan. Ethan will parachute off the train. So, and as simple as that.
Mhm.
But then, of course, something goes wrong, and the mask machine breaks, and there's only a mask for the White Widow, none for Zola.
This made me happy.
Uh-huh.
I was so happy when that mask machine broke. I have made it clear I'm not the biggest fan of the masks because I think they make things too easy, and that's exactly what happened here. It also makes sense. The whole thing with the entity, their technology failing them, and they have to be creative. Love it, love it, love it.
Yep.
Thoughts?
I mean, I love the masks, but I
Uh-huh.
also like when they have to improvise.
There you go.
So
But
I appreciated we had plenty of masks already. So the fact that he doesn't wear one, I mean, they even give us this. They show us the scenario where the mask machine did work, and so we even get to see the mask already. So I'm like, you know what? It breaks now. It's fine, and it causes it forces them to be more creative. But the masks are just so much fun.
oh my gosh, they pleased both of us.
Mhm.
That's not an easy thing to do. That being said, though, this whole thing with the train and the stunt, which we'll get to later, I was like, it's the train. It's not Fort Knox. He really can't get onto it any other way besides using a
Well,
mask.
yeah. It's a train that has both, the mysterious buyer and
Right.
the White Widow. You would presume there's security on it.
Well, yeah, there's security on it, but there's lots of normal people around. It's not the Pentagon. It's not an armored
You're
train.
forgetting the one big thing,
Mm,
the entity,
yes.
who, if he goes on in a normal fashion, would see him and spot him and alert everyone.
So what? He can't like hide at the station and then while it's pulling out, just jump on board.
No, because there were security cameras at the station.
Okay, but then we need the movie to tell us that there's security
They
cameras everywhere.
Do we though? Do we in this world that we live in now? Do we really need to be told that there's security cameras everywhere?
Doesn't it take place in the
When
UK?
yeah,
Oh no,
when
it's not
your
in this
own
part.
neighborhood probably has 20 different people with a Ring camera or a
Mm.
Nest camera, or no, we don't need to be told there's security cameras everywhere. We live it. We don't need to be told that. Come on.
Well, in that case, they should have been dealing with that the whole movie.
They were.
Mm,
Anytime that Grace shows up, she's caught on a security camera. That's how everyone knows where she is.
it also made me wonder, like, couldn't he have like crawled underneath the train and like stapled himself to the bottom, like in Dungeons and Dragons? Great movie, by the way.
And
I don't know. It's just I felt like
No.
for a super secret spy organization, there had to have been an easier way to get on the train than what they did. That's all. We can agree to disagree.
jumping on the top of a train is a pretty
Mm.
simple way to do it, as
Mm.
as the plan was going to be.
Yeah. So we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah, that's where we are now. They need a new plan. So yeah, Grace
Mhm.
still goes undercover, but now Ethan is going to, at a turn when the
Right.
train is going to slow down. He's going to jump on the train from a bike. That's a
Mm.
pretty simple plan. I don't see what stapling yourself to the bottom of a train seems more complicated than hopping on a train as it's slowing down at a court. Come on,
Okay,
come on.
I don't really want to argue about this anymore. I'm just saying I feel like it would be a million times easier for him to get on the train before it leaves than while it's in motion. That's all. That's all.
hmm
We'll have to agree to disagree about it.
Anyway, so we're on the train. We find
Mhm.
out that Gabriel isn't bored. He's in this like weird coffin thing,
That
which
was
has
great.
a mask over it. As this is probably his way of communicating with the entity, I assume.
Maybe. Oh, look, Gabriel is able to figure out a way to get onto the train without being detected.
Because Gabriel is working with the entity.
But yeah, I don't understand. The coffin thing was really weird. Why didn't he just get on, walk on? It is cool though. Very, very science fiction.
So he and Paris take out the brakes of the train so that it will not slow down because the entity has already predicted what Ethan's plan is.
I like the entity being more involved, as I said. I like it.
Yeah. So Grace drugs the White Widow, and because of the brakes being taken out and the train not slowing down, Ethan misses the train and he has to ask Benji for an alternative route,
Mhm.
which is instead going up the side of a mountain and parachuting off of it, as Benji suggests.
Right. And then somehow getting the timing right to hit the
Mhm.
train.
hmm
Mhm. It's a good idea, a good excuse to get him to jump off of a mountain.
Yeah, so on his motorcycle, and
Right.
okay. So I know we argued about the stunt way
We
back
always do.
in our trailer
Right.
breakdown. Did the stunt read better to you in the actual movie than in the trailer?
Okay, so here's the thing. I had some time
Oh
to think
God.
about it. Okay,
Yeah.
and we're going to be talking about Ghost Protocol next week,
hmm
and I'm going to probably bring it up again. So I apologize in advance for that. But I think climbing on the Burj Khalifa was both the best and the worst thing that ever happened in the Mission Impossible series.
Okay.
Okay. It's the best because it set the new bar for action movies, brought in a ton of fans like myself, even though I'm not a fanboy. It was amazing. But then the problem is every movie after that, they're like, how do we top it? And I don't think they've ever been able to top it. They've had really good stunts. This one's good, but it's
Being strapped to the side of a plane does not.
I don't think so. It's not the same. That's me. That's how I feel. You're going to
Wow.
disagree. I
Deeply
think the difference is because the bird scene went on for so long.
What about Tom Cruise actually piloting his own helicopter in Fallout?
I liked the Fallout one. I liked when he falls off the helicopter.
Mhm.
That was good. That's the closest they've come to it.
Okay, all right.
Mhm. Also, as I think I mentioned at the time, it looked like it could have been a stunt guy.
But would it be? Come on. You see him as it is held in a single shot of him.
Right.
You clearly see him on the motorcycle and going off the cliff. Where would they cut? Why would they cut? This is Tom Cruise we're talking about. Come on.
We know that because we read about it. We read about it in the news, but it's okay. We don't have to get into it.
Even without that, it's just this is Tom Cruise. The guy who is going to do his own stunt.
Mhm.
Why would he do that?
Okay, well, I've said my piece. I assume you loved it.
Of course I did. Come on, it's someone jumping off a cliff with a motorcycle and then parachuting.
Nice, good. I'm glad you liked it. I mean, I liked it too.
Who are
not
you?
as much as the other ones? Yeah.
Did you though? Did you?
Yeah. It's cool.
Because it doesn't. All I've heard is complaints from you.
But that's not true.
About this stunt. That is, I've only heard complaints
about the stunt. Yeah. I don't know. Of course I liked it. I just don't know how else to express that I liked it.
You could have just started with that and then started the criticism. You never even said that you liked it.
Do the compliment sandwich, yeah. Well, duly noted.
All right. Anyway, so we also get this little scene that I liked with Degas and Briggs, and with Briggs Degas sort of questioning, like, why are we chasing him? He seems to be doing the right thing, which I liked.
Questioning orders is dangerous.
Also, we get Grace disguised as the White Widow, finally meeting the buyer, who turns out to be Kittredge.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's the deal with this? So I was like, are they saying Kittredge is bad guy?
Kittredge has always been neutrally.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's neutral. I don't even know what we.
Is it okay if I jump ahead a bit
to
the end? Because at the end, Grace comes in from the cold to him, and she's like, "Ethan tells me I can trust you," but she just saw him try to buy the key.
Buy it for America.
So he is a good guy, and he is trustworthy.
I mean, good in terms of he is doing this for America,
right?
So America can be the superpower, as opposed to he wants this, as opposed to Ethan, who wants two things. No man should have all this power. Yeah.
So Ethan and Kittredge are at odds, which is very expected.
But he is still and then. So way back in the very first movie, we met, Alana Mitsopoulos' mother, Max. Do you remember her? Vanessa Redgrave?
Is she with the head of the IMF?
No, she is the one who Ethan is trying to sell who's trying to get the knock list. She's the one who wants the knock list.
All right.
At the very end of that movie, we have Kittredge, who captures her and says, "I'm sure there's something we can work out."
So he always kind of has his own agenda.
Yeah, but here in this movie, if you were listening, you'd hear that him say that the deal I had with your mother, Max, was that
I remember that.
Criminal enterprise can continue to remain so long as it primarily serves our needs. So yes, he's working with her to get this for America.
Right.
Unlike the DNI, who is also
Yes.
on this train and is meeting with Gabriel.
Hmm.
Basically,
Yeah.
because we find out here that so it was a rogue AI. We already knew that entity was a rogue AI, but what we didn't know was that before it became, or before it was aware that it was, before the community was aware that it was completely sentient, it had been sent off to the Sevastopol just to disable the stealth technology, but went against all of its programming and decided to just kill everyone instead.
Love it. And then there's always the Prometheus who thinks he can steal fire from the gods.
So both Gabriel and the director of national intelligence want the Sevastopol to never be found because, one, the DNI doesn't want any proof of their involvement, of the US's involvement with the Sevastopol, and Gabriel doesn't want anyone to find the Sevastopol because the source code of the entity is contained inside the Sevastopol.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as the DNI says, I'm the only one who knows where it is, I was like, well, of course they're going to kill you now. The entity doesn't want to be controlled.
Yep. So he gets killed, but Gabriel also stabs Paris because the entity has predicted that Paris will betray them because Ethan Hunt saved her life, or spared her life.
Yeah, all the stuff with the entity was great. I just wish there was more.
So the widow finally wakes up as Grace has declined the payment of $100 million.
In a very dramatic moment,
Yeah.
right? Which I was like, why didn't you just take the money? It's not like it's...
Because she's growing a conscience.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. It's true. Yeah, she's no longer a thief. She's changed. Ethan Hunt has that effect on people.
And also the fact that Ilsa died to save her life. Died, question mark.
I still say died. We'll see.
All right, so Grace, does the mask pull and even pulls off the little strip, the voice modulator strip, which we didn't see. That's the first time we saw in this movie.
But I remembered it from previous movies.
Anytime that Ethan's wore a mask in this, we don't actually see the pull, or at least maybe I didn't catch it either time I watched it.
Right.
And so she is, got at gunpoint by Zola, who is trying to get the key from her when Ethan crashes into the side of the train.
Now, this I would have liked to have seen a stunt guy do. Come in from the outside. That would have been something. But he probably would have broken both his legs doing it, at best. It's very tempting to nitpick here to be like, oh man, he crashes in at the exact moment, at the exact place to save her life. But it's a movie. I totally forget it. Yeah.
And also, we know that Ethan had, the AR glasses are probably not.
His AR goggles.
AR goggles, yeah, probably not because of the entity, so maybe not. And in the ensuing chaos, Gabriel gets the key, and Ethan chases after him, and they have a big old fight on the roof of the train.
Call back to the first one.
I loved it. It was so good. In that also, it was primarily, there was some train work in the first one, like actual train stuff, but it was mostly a combination of green screen and set work and miniatures. Here, they were actually on top of that train as it was going 60 miles an hour.
So the part where, and I think this was in the trailer, is the part where he turns and then dives down just as the bridge comes. Was like amazing. I assume it was done with CGI.
I don't know. Really good. Yeah, it did look good. I like the tunnel. The tunnel fight was pretty good.
Very intense. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was just like, it just all looked so good. We get to a point where, after they're fighting, Ethan gets hold of the knife and gets Gabriel at knife point and is about to cut his throat when Briggs and Degas show up and stop him.
Yeah, they're not being paid enough to climb around on the top of the trains.
No. And Ethan just like, all right, fine, I won't kill him. I'm even dropping this knife, but just make sure you cover him. He's the one you want. And Briggs insists, no, I won't care about him. I want you. And at that moment, of course, a timer on Gabriel's watch goes off, and he knows that's exactly when they'll be passing by a truck that he can jump off, because that was his escape plan.
That was sweet. Classic entity move. And it occurred to me, this movie doesn't have a lot of gadgets compared to some of the
Because
other
they
ones.
have to be low tech because of the entity.
It's great. And yeah, the only thing this fancy watch does is a timer, which
A
watches
timer,
have.
and then also it activates the explosives on the bridge
Yeah, but
that
James
is
Bond
coming
was
up.
doing that in GoldenEye 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And then we also have one last bit of magic here.
Oh yes, yes. I like that. Well, not this is not magic. This is pickpocketing. There's
Well,
a difference.
whatever. It's just funny how a bunch of these characters, if they get even somewhat close to you, it's over. You
Mhm.
can't hold on to anything
So
you're
yeah,
carrying.
so Ethan has swapped the lighter, which was we never even talked about the lighter as
Yes, it's been around.
it's a token of like going back and forth between Ethan and Grace.
So I have a thought, Christian. Do you
Yes.
think the lighter should have said something on it?
No,
Okay.
it's better as just a plain thing that we don't. But yeah, so Ethan has swapped the key, which Gabriel had with
Mm.
the lighter, and he does a very Khan-like scream of Ethan.
Khan, like, yeah.
Yeah, Ethan.
Yeah, I'm like, why didn't he say Hunt? Ethan
Because
sounds
he
too
never
familiar.
says Hunt. He always calls him Ethan.
Oh, because they have history.
Yeah.
All right.
Grace and Ethan trying to stop the train, but they realize they can't, so they disconnect the engine from the rest of the carriages, and have to hop through and run through all of the carriages as
Yeah.
the train is going off of the cliff. Also, Briggs and Degas are helping by getting people all the way to the back of the train. They also see Kittredge and wonder what the heck's he doing here.
That was great. The part where they're jumping off the train, where they're hanging, that produced a lot more of a reaction in me than most of the rest of the movie, including the car chase. I like my heart elevated. Very,
Fascinating.
yeah. Maybe
'Cause
maybe it's hanging off of stuff that does it for me.
Probably, yeah, but not jumping off stuff, just hanging off of it.
I guess so.
Okay, but yeah, there's a lot of great parts in here, including like a part where they basically end up like 0G for like a couple of seconds.
That was great. The part where he says to Grace, "Do you trust me?" and she shakes her head.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah,
Classic joke. Yeah.
I also love that there's also a grand piano in there that like almost hits them.
It was good. I thought it was gonna totally take them both out. Yeah.
And they are about to fall off into the abyss when Paris comes and helps them.
Aw, so nice.
And from Paris, who is seemingly close to death, they find out what the key is actually the key for, and it's for the Sevastopol.
I was surprised that they found that out. I thought they were going to have to wait until the next movie. I thought they were going to do a literal cliffhanger ending.
They're not going to pull a Fast X because that is stupid.
Or Into the Spider-Verse.
I haven't seen it, so I actually don't know how that ends.
Oop, I kind of gave it away. It's not literally a cliffhanger.
No, but like, yeah, Fast X is literally, ends in the middle of a scene. And it's like, oh my God, really? No, McCory spoke like, even though this is a part one, it needs to be a complete story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So we get Ethan has found his parachute from before, which Luther had previously said he packed with both a base jump kit and a speed flying kit. Just because he didn't know what kind of conditions he would be getting off the train. So Ethan uses the speed flying kit to escape, but unfortunately it only holds one. So Grace has left, which was the plan all along, really.
Right.
And so she tells Kittredge, who appears now, that Ethan Hunt said, "You're someone I can trust, and he gave me a choice, and I choose to accept."
Dun dun dun. It's exciting.
And Ethan, rendezvous with Benji, and I love, like, okay, I know you haven't been skydiving. I have.
I'm proud of it. No, I mean, I'm proud that I haven't been skydiving.
I know you are. And I just think you should live a little.
Believe me, there's lots of ways to live. I'm happy.
But landing in skydiving is ridiculously, like, standing up is hard to do, especially if it's your first time doing it. But it's even more so for speed flying, because you're coming in at 60 miles an hour.
Something else I forgot to mention with Benji is there's a part where he
Oh,
gets into his car and he puts self-driving and then he puts a seatbelt on.
mhm.
So I didn't realize it, but I think he was afraid the entity was going to try to kill him. And I'm
Yep.
surprised
Yep.
that it didn't.
Yeah.
But then Alana had a theory that BMW wouldn't let them put a scene whereas BMW tries to kill him
Probably
in the
not.
movie.
No. We have another monologue from Kittredge about how this next mission, the entire world's relying on you. They just don't know it. And so the
Mm.
key is only the beginning, and you see the Sevastopol under the ice.
I think we need a private sub to get in there and check it
Oh
out.
God, no! When we get the end of the movie. Now, do you recall if it said "End Part 1" at the end?
Do I recall?
From seeing it the first time, I vividly recall that, but the second time I watched it, it wasn't there. It just said "Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning" and then went to the credits.
Okay, yeah, I didn't remember
I
it.
think I've
Write in, fans, and ask.
yeah. So I'm gonna poll some other people who have seen the movie and see if they remember it saying "End Part 1" at the very end, or did they all rush out to use the bathroom and I didn't see it.
All right, so now it is time for our spy fact versus fiction. I have a little bit, if you'd like me to go first.
Sure, I've got a few things too.
Okay, so I Googled, is the Orient Express still around?
Oh, that was one of my things actually. But go ahead.
And
Let's see what you got.
it looks like, according to orient-express.com, there is one coming in 2025. But there is something also called the Venice Simplon Orient Express, a Belmont train at belmont.com. And it seems very nice. The interior is all nice, but it is not powered by coal like it is in the movie.
No.
In fact, the only coal-powered locomotives are in museums.
Interesting. So I have a little bit more on the Orient Express. So
Okay.
just that the original route, which was from, I believe, Paris to Istanbul,
Mm.
stopped running in about 2009. And
Oh,
so, yeah.
that recently.
hmm they were not, I believe, as fancy a car as shown here. The Venice Simplon Orient Express uses some of the original trains from the original Orient Express, but yeah, I think the most recent version of the actual Orient Express was just using regular trains. It was just had that same name.
I see. And then also we talked about Carrie Ellis plays the DNI. I don't know if we ever said who the DNI is.
Oh yeah, no, we never did. Well, I said the Director of National Intelligence, but I didn't explain his role. So
Right.
go ahead.
So, well, according to DNI.gov, the DNI, or the Director of National Intelligence, serves as the head of the intelligence community. What is that? It's a coalition of 18 agencies and organizations, including the ODNI, which is the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. They are all within the executive branch. They work both independently and collaboratively to gather and analyze the intelligence necessary to conduct foreign relations and national security activities.
All right. So I got a few things. First of all, source code. So the Sevastopol was important because it had the entity's source code. Now, in addition to being a sci-fi action thriller from 2011 starring Jake Gyllenhaal, source code is also the source of a computer program. It contains declarations, instructions, functions, loops, and other statements which act as instruction for the program on how to function. And that's from techopedia.com.
I see. Something that I forgot to mention is that I wanted to talk about what the real Sevastopol is, but then the movie beat me to it and explained it.
It's a city. Yep.
Yeah,
In
it's a city in
Crimea?
Crimea, so it's
Yep.
disputed. Yeah.
All right. So also, I've got something about. I mean, we see it a lot here: pickpockets and magicians, it's close to magic. So this may seem very silly for spies to know. However, during the Cold War, a magician named John Mulholland was paid by the CIA to write a manual on deception and misdirection. And that is known as, now copies of this document were believed to have been destroyed in 1973, but copies later resurfaced and were published as the official CIA Manual of Trickery and Deception. Now this is from Wikipedia, but I used to have a copy of that book. I have since donated it to the Spy Museum's volunteer library. So any volunteers out there can check it out in that library.
All right, so I'll have to track it down.
Yeah. What else do I have? Oh, and it also can be found on Amazon. You can pick it up for like $12. It is Prime Day today. or well, not by the time that
Yeah,
this is
when we're
released.
recording it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Spanish Steps are in Rome, Italy. There are 135 of them, and was built in between 1923 and 1925. And they are famous for being in a couple of different movies, including Roman Holiday, which is a lovely film starring Audrey
Oh,
Hepburn and Peter
nice.
Peck. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a vintage movie.
yeah. And you've already talked about the Orient Express, so I can skip over that. Now, speed flying,
Hmm.
Ethan does at the very end. It's a hybrid sport that combines elements of paragliding and parachuting to create a new sport. Like paragliding, speed flying is done by launching from a slope with the wing overhead, already inflated by the incoming air. The main
Hmm.
difference between speed flying and paragliding is that the speed flying is meant to create a fast, thrilling ride close to the slope, while the point of paragliding is usually to maintain a longer, gentler flight.
What about base jumping?
Well, base jumping is just jumping off, is like parachuting.
I see.
Yeah, so I think that's what I've got for spy fact versus spy fiction.
Very nice. So now we have our favorite quotes. I only have one.
All right, what is it?
Ethan. I did also like it, if I remember it, I guess it's my favorite one where Briggs says to Kittredge, "Well, sir, since you're not really here, it's really none of your concern about what
Yep.
they're doing."
Yep. That's pretty close to the line. Yeah, it's something to that
Mhm.
effect. Briggs also has a really good quote that's like very similar to um,
Mhm.
what's his name, Alec Baldwin's line in Rogue Nation about Ethan. Like in these movies, you get these people describing Ethan. I'm trying to remember what it's something about being an agent of chaos and something like that, but I don't remember it, and I wish I did. But I also like from him, do not consider him detained unless you have driven a wooden stake through his open heart.
Oh yeah, and hey, it's I think of a lot of fictional heroes and villains that could apply to.
Also, it's from the DNI. He says when they're talking about how the IMF works. Like there's a
Mhm.
lot of good lines in there that I wish I could remember, but I couldn't write it
Right.
down because I was in a theater. But it's like, what kind of operation lets its agents choose which for orders to follow?
Hmm.
And then I've also got, and again, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's Benji saying, this operation, went rogue before it even happened, making this this conversation technically treason, or as we like to call it, Monday.
Yeah, I like that. And then also the part where Briggs's sidekick, whose
Oh
name
yeah,
I keep
Degas.
forgetting, the guy is like, well, maybe you always had a good reason to go rogue. Very
Well,
meta,
and
which I appreciate.
lastly, I've got the from the briefing scene where Ethan is talking the new IMF agent through his procedures, and he says, "You gotta give me what's the code phrase?" He says, "What's the oath? We live and die in the shadows, for those we hold close, and for those we've never met."
Apparently, they have an oath. They get generating a lot of lore in this movie.
Yeah, yeah. Alrighty. Shall we get to our ratings?
I'm kind of afraid to.
Be afraid.
Will you like murder me if I don't give it a high
I
rating?
can neither confirm nor deny.
Oh God. I guess I'll go first then.
Sure, sure.
So I had a thought, Christian,
Okay.
which is I don't like for myself. I don't want to give a movies a 7 out of 10 martinis because that's
Why?
what we do here at the Spy-Fi Guys. We do ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 martinis, 1 being Avengers 1998 and 10 being even better than No Time to Die. So the problem with a 7 is that it just means it's good.
Okay.
Okay. And that really doesn't tell you very much. Okay.
All right.
So I am not going to give it a 7. I'm going to think through what I said. So it's a Mission Impossible movie. The stunts are always great. The chases are always great. The action's always great. But this time, I found the plot to be unnecessarily confusing. And I felt,
Have you seen the first movie?
well, the first movie is different. I had different expectations going into the first movie.
Okay. All right.
And also, I meant to talk about this earlier, but I'll talk now. When they try to do this whole thing of like, Ethan Hunt, your sins are coming back to haunt you. Think on your sins and the people you left behind. That doesn't really work for me. That's not what I want in a Mission Impossible movie. I want fun. So like, I like the entity. I didn't like Gabriel. I liked Grace, I didn't like Ilsa's death so much. So I'm probably not rating this as highly as some of the other Mission Impossible movies. I will give it a 6 out of 10. It's on the better side of okay.
Zach's body was never found.
Oh boy.
I'm going on the exact opposite, 9.5. 9.5 martinis.
Wow. Would you like to talk through why you gave it
such a high rating? Of course I will. Because, look, don't get me wrong. And this, like we've clearly established, I'm the fan of this franchise. I've been a fan of this franchise since I was 9 years old. That is 29 years. I've been a fan of this franchise. So I've seen it from the beginning and all the changes it's gone through. This is the best encapsulation of all of the types of it. I'm not going to like all the different parts of it. You have the twists and turns from the first movie. You have all the action from all of the great movies. You have the good byplay between characters, which I feel like the fact that it's a thief and it's someone who has a good byplay with Ethan. I thought of Naya from Mission Impossible 2.
Okay, I remember.
Yeah. So I don't know that this is the best movie in the franchise, but it is the best encapsulation of all the different parts of it. You even have the weird Dutch angles that were in the first movie. You have, Christopher McQuarrie is drawing from every part of the franchise to make this movie. And also, we'll talk about this eventually when we get to Fallout, but at Fallout, my Fitbit that I've been wearing asked me if I was exercising because my heart rate was so high.
Yeah,
which is cool. But this actually had time to breathe between the action scenes, made me feel more about the characters, and it gave me a story. And especially the you have usual viewpoint of Ethan, but you have a different viewpoint of someone who's basically thrown into the IMF with Grace. And I really liked Hayley Atwell's character. On seeing it the first time, it was a 9 for me, but it's getting to see it in IMAX this time, even though I missed Tom Cruise, bumped it up that extra half. So 9.5 martinis.
Well, you are the target audience. It sounds like they really nailed it. So what would have to happen for you to give it a 10 out of 10? You'd have to actually meet Tom Cruise?
No, but who knows? Maybe I will give some of the other Mission Impossible we haven't covered a 10. You don't know.
Well, I've always kind of felt like, for me, a 10 out of 10 movie doesn't actually exist. But that's a discussion for another time. It's like a theoretical perfect movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, anything else you want to talk about?
No, just that, if you want more Mission Impossible action, tune in soon for our coverage of Ghost Protocol.
That's right. You can stay tuned for that. So thank you for joining us. You can find us on social media, the Spy-Fi Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and our merch store at redbubble.com. Until next time, I'm Zach.
And I'm Christian.
And we are the Spy-Fi Guys, signing off.
Thank you for listening to the Spy-Fi Guys. If you enjoyed our podcast, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The theme song from this podcast is Mistake the Getaway by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Films, books, and television shows reviewed by our podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
This is a personal podcast. Any views, statements, or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the participants. They do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the participants may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated. Any views or opinions are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, or individual.
You can find our podcast on social media at The Spy-Fi Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.